Hey guys, so today I want to do another ranking video, and this is going to be on my top 30 Super Nintendo RPGs. Super Nintendo to me is one of the greatest systems. Like it's an S tier console. Like to me, Super Nintendo, PS1, Nintendo Switch. These are the three consoles I think about when I think of the greatest consoles for RPGs, especially Japanese RPGs. So for Super Nintendo, the interesting thing is during this era, many of the JRPGs during this time, and it's almost always JRPGs because during this time RPGs were pretty much dominated by Japanese. I think the only Western RPG I played on the Super Nintendo was like Shadowrun. That was it. Yeah, there's not too many Western RPGs released on the system, but yeah, just talking about Japanese RPGs mostly. I think Western RPGs were mostly on PC back then. But yeah, it's one of the great systems for JRPGs. And the thing is, even though a lot of people know that Super Nintendo has a lot of great RPGs, they don't know just how many it had. Because over half of the Japanese RPGs back then weren't even released in the West officially. I actually did an entire other video ranking my top 15 favorite Japanese RPGs on the Super Nintendo that were not officially released in the West. So yeah, I mean, I made a whole other video just based on that. But this video is just going to be like an all-inclusive thing, including Japanese RPGs that were not released in the West before and Japanese RPGs that were officially released in the West. It's going to include both. So anyways, my top 30 list here, and I'm also going to be including RPGs that like the video is going to be including footage that I played on my channel, of course. But there's a lot of, well, actually a few, I wouldn't say a lot, but a few Super Nintendo RPGs that I played on different systems, and I didn't want to replay the same game multiple times just on each system if there weren't that many differences. So for example, Breath of Fire 2, I played it on the Game Boy Advance. I did not play on the Super Nintendo on my channel, but I'm going to be listing it in my list anyways, just because it was originally released for the Super Nintendo. So I felt like, you know, it's still a Super Nintendo game. So Tales of Fantasia, I did not play the original Super Nintendo version on my channel yet, so I'll be using footage from the PS1 version. And Final Fantasy 4, 5, and 6, I did not play the original Super Nintendo versions on my channel. I played the Pixel remasters. But they still count because these games are originally released on the Super Nintendo. Just I'll be using footage from different versions because I don't want to go back and play, you know, a similar version of the game if it's the same game. So yeah, that's my little caveat and disclaimer there. So anyways, yeah, I can go with my top 30, so stay tuned. Alright, so just like with my other ranking videos, I always like to start off with an honorable mention, and my honorable mention for Super Nintendo RPGs is going to be Tenshi no Uda, Song of the Angel, which is also on my list of... Actually, I had this as an honorable mention on my list of the top 15 best Super Nintendo RPGs that never had an official release in the West as well. Because yeah, this game not very well known in the West, of course, because it was Japan only. You can play a fan translated version, which I'm doing here. And I have to say, like, even though the gameplay of this game isn't like all that special, it's just like a typical JRPG of the times, I really got sucked in by the heartwarming story and the romance, right, in this game. Like, yeah, usually you do get some romance in JRPGs and stuff, but this one is just so in your face, and you can't help just feeling like very heartwarming, right, by this story here. So I get kind of sucked into that, I guess. Maybe I'm a softie at heart, I don't know.
I want to know all about you.
I got sucked into this love story right at the beginning of the game, and really made me want to keep playing. Of course, you get a group of travelers and friends to help you rescue basically your lover. And so the plot of the game is your typical rescue the princess, rescue your lover type of thing. But yeah, it's a very heartwarming story, I would say.
I'll overlook this instant if you make it worth my while.
So anyways, Tenshi no Uda, Song of the Angel, I think definitely deserves a mention. While the combat system, as you guys can see, nothing all that different from other JRPGs of the time too. But yeah, just the whole storyline and everything really kind of sucked me in.
This must be the evil sorcerer guy.
Yeah, of course, there's going to be some ancient evil that took over the body of the king and everything. I mean, that's typical fare for JRPGs of the time. But yeah, got sucked into the heartwarming story.
Son of the Lord of Balloon is forcing her to marry him.
Yeah, and I think it does deserve a mention, right?
What the hell?
Should know about this game. So, anyways, honorable mention goes to Tenshi no Uda, Song of the Angel.
Well, you might as well just call it gold.
Alright, so starting off with number 30 on my list is Tales of Fantasia.
I will.
And this game was originally released in Japan only in 1994. The footage here you're seeing now is actually the 1998 PS1 version, which was also only released in Japan. I was just playing a fan-translated version. There's fan-translated versions for
we'll take this back
for
to
both
Amy
versions.
then.
But yeah, Tales of Fantasia is the first game in the Tales series. It's a long-running series that continues to this day. I'm sure many JRPG enthusiasts know about the Tales series. And Fantasia is a pretty good Tales game. I would say that it's not one of my top 5 Tales games, but it's more like top 10.
Kind brother. Ooh.
So, yeah, if there's like, I think there's like maybe like 20 Tales games or something.
Right.
But anyways, Tales of Fantasia is around like, you know, top 10, but not really top 5.
I thought it would get more than just.
So it's a good Tales game.
I thought it would get a reward,
one
not
of the
just
best.
a title.
And I think it's fine. I mean, it really set the standard
Kind
for all the
brother.
other Tales games that came after it. I mean, the thing is, when it first came out, it was really considered to be one of the most technologically advanced Super Famicom. I'm going to refer to Super Famicom and Super Nintendo interchangeably in this video, but it's one of the most technologically advanced SNES games. So, yeah, if you have a problem, just I treat SNES and Super Famicom the same. They're just, you know, depending on where you are living in the world. But yeah, technically they're the same system. So yeah, it's one of the most technically advanced SNES games when it was first released. It had like a full, I think it had full voice acting. It had like even like a soundtrack, an original like voice. Yeah, it had an original like actual song that was written for it, I believe. So yeah, that was pretty cool. So technologically very advanced for the time. And then the combat system is unique when it came out. It's set the standard for every other Tales game in terms of combat. It's just semi-real-time combat you
not
see
just
here,
regular
side
snakes, they're
view
anacondas.
combat. But it's kind of like not really an action RPG, but also not really turn-based either. It's somewhere in between. But anyways, I have a little nitpick with Tales games is that they call gold gold. I don't know. If you're gonna call gold gold, you might as well just call it gold.
What the heck?
Like, why call it gold? Anyways, the little nitpick there. But anyways, decent story, decent characters, graphics and everything still hold up, obviously, because it's like a 2D game.
You should know better
Most
than to
Super
trust
Nintendo
these
games
guys.
hold up well, but Tales of Fantasia, because the graphics and sprites were quite advanced for the time, definitely still does hold up well. So anyways, yeah, Tales of Fantasia, number 30, just because, like, I think there's better Tales games, but it's still a good one. So it still makes my list. Number 29 is God Heed the Call to Awaken, which came out in 1996. Japan only. I played the fan translated version here. Pretty decent music. Sprite work could be a little bit better, but I do like the fact that at least in the beginning of the game, it kind of reminded me of Earthbound a bit, because you're playing as this like kid in kind of like a modern-ish contemporary setting with like a baseball cap and everything. That reminded me a bit of Earthbound's contemporary setting. But then the combat is very much like Dragon Quest style, I would say. Actually, it's more Phantasy Star style because it's like behind the shoulder. It's not even like just first person. It's like behind the shoulder. And then you have the modern weapons like the baseball bat. So that actually kind of reminds me of
Super Nintendo
Earthbound
games
a
have
bit
an
too.
auto. Actually, some JRPGs, I should say.
But later on, there's a twist because later on you get transported into this alien world in the future. So that's pretty interesting. So yeah, at the beginning you start off in this contemporary Japanese place, but then later on you get transported and teleported into the future, and then you get to fight crazier monsters. So yeah, that reason I think it does make my list. And look at the way he runs, it's so funny. Yeah, if I run, he just like waddles off.
Looks funny.
And now it's the funny animation, and then you fight some pretty crazy looking monsters too. This is a dog wearing like a fedora. What was that? Yeah, it's a wolf wearing, no, a fox. Anyways, a fox wearing like a fedora. But you meet some crazy monsters in this game. And just the whole story and concept, right? Like you're getting teleported into the future, and some alien worlds are. Yeah, it's that's pretty cool. Yeah, so you got crazy monsters, crazy story. Arguably like a more modern contemporary setting, which isn't too common in a JRPG of this era. Then yeah, pretty cool game. Anyways, it's my number 29. So there's going to be a lot of RPGs on this list which did not come out in the US. Okay, so just like as I mentioned, so many JRPGs did not come out to the US during this time. Number 28, Super Shell Monster Story 2, released in 1996. What I like about this one, you get to play, well, you get to play as the hero, you know, that's a typical JRPG thing, but you also get to play with a group of monsters too. So here, I'm just playing as a group of monsters fighting against other monsters. So not very common that you get to play as a, like most JRPGs, you play as, like, as a human fighting against the monster. But, yeah, in this game you get to play as monsters fighting against other monsters, which is pretty cool. Trying to save your monster homeland. Graphics are really colorful. This is a late Super Nintendo game, so you see some pretty nice sprite work here. So that's pretty good too. Music is okay, but I think it's overall just you have some pretty funny humor in this game, some pretty crazy looking monsters, and bright and colorful sprites, and yeah, just the whole concept of hey, your character brought in from another world into this monster world to help these monsters save their monster world against other monsters, and yeah, anyways, pretty cool setting, pretty cool story, colorful graphics, and the combat style reminds me, to be honest, reminds me of Far East of Eden, but yeah, it's again the behind his shoulder style, so yeah, the typical RPG stuff going on here with the story here, but the yeah, the combat's like this, so it's almost like again, Phantasy Star style, if you want to call it that, behind the shoulder style. So you have your main human hero character fighting alongside monsters, which is pretty cool. Yeah, Super Shell Monster Story 2. And again, this is another Japan only one. You had to pick up the fan translation online if you want to play this one. 27 is going to be Sailor Moon Another Story. This is another Japan-only RPG that never came to the West, unfortunately. Yeah, it came out in 1995, based on Sailor Moon. And this is a game where it's like, people don't realize there's a Sailor Moon RPG, cool. But there is, and it's a pretty good one. Like, it's not even like a... Like, you think of a lot of licensed games, right? Most of them don't... most of the licensed games aren't that good, right? There's only a few, you know, that stand out to people. Oh, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had pretty good beat-em-ups and stuff. But for the most part, like most licensed games, not that good, right? But this Sailor Moon RPG is really good, surprisingly. I think there's another Ranma 1-2 RPG as well, based off... There's a lot of anime RPGs, actually, that were never released in the West. But anyways, I like this one. This is like... You have all the Sailor Scouts here. That's including like Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Saturn as well. So it's not just the original 5 Sailor Scouts. You have the other 5 as well. Sorry, the other 5, because there's Sailor Mini Moon as well, who's also included. So anyways, you have 10 Sailor Scouts. An original story.
Tell the others, probably.
And the only thing about this game is that the random encounter rate is a bit high. So yeah, but that's an issue with a lot of games from this era. Like these old school RPGs, like they're pretty brutal in terms of the encounter rate usually, but that's definitely the case for Sailor Moon. Another story. It's like that's the only thing. It's like, yes, encounter rate is a bit high, but otherwise it's a fun game to play. Sailor Moon fan or not.
Yes, Sailor Saturn.
Yeah, this takes place after the main story of the anime, I believe, because you have Sailor Saturn, right? Like you're visiting Sailor Saturn, who is like the last Sailor Scout that you meet. So it's a cool original story. And then we'll show you a bit of the combat in this game. Yeah, high encounter rate, but if you can put up with that, it's your standard side-scrolling, side view perspective combat system here, with your typical crazy Sailor Moon monsters here. But yeah, whether or not you're into Sailor Moon, definitely check it out. I think it's definitely worth playing. So regardless of Sailor Moon fan or not, it's just a solid RPG for the Super Nintendo. You have to pick up the fan translation.
We look too tough, giggle.
So number 26 is Metal Max Returns. This is yet another RPG that was Japan only that you had to pick up the fan translation for. But yeah, all of these are like pretty quirky and unique. Metal Max Returns because it's set in this post-apocalyptic wasteland. As you might have thought, the name refers to probably Mad Max. And yeah, it's set in this post-apocalyptic environment. So that's a pretty unique setting already. You're kind of disowned by your dad from the beginning of the game. But then you go off by yourself, you know, you go off in the dungeons, and then yeah, you eventually pick up some tanks. And the monsters in this game are also really crazy. So this is a 1995 game, so it's a late Super Nintendo game. So graphical wise, it's pretty good. Yeah, there's better, but it's pretty good, like decent sprites and everything like that. But you have some really cool looking monsters. Look at that cannon hopper. It's a grasshopper with a cannon attached to its abdomen. Like how cool is that, right? Really cool monsters in this game. And eventually, like this is just the first part. I'm in the dungeon here. First, you'll look at that. There's a caterpillar with a chain gun. That's right, a caterpillar with a chain gun attached. And then you fight this dog with a rocket launcher attached to its back. A bionic pooch. Really crazy looking monsters. And then you get to pick up a tank. And then the tank has different weapons and stuff. A potato Vulcan is what it's called. Okay. Yeah. So you have to play as a tank. And when I mean you get to play as a tank, you really do get to move around in this tank. So yeah, you actually get to move around in this tank as if you're, you know, just a character. So, and you get to have a party of tanks too. Once you recruit other people, you can go out of the tank like I just did when you go into a city. So just really cool in terms of the gameplay. That's kind of unique, is the fact that you can, you can just command a whole party of tanks, and you don't have to be in the tank. If you go in the tank, then of course you have more firepower, more movement. But you can also go out of the tank, and then you can also fight them on foot and walk around on foot too. And it's just really cool. Interesting, unique setting, cool monsters. I mean, look at this thing. This is such, like I'm fighting like a kind of cannon. Yeah, it's just some kind of like, this is a building actually. It's not even a monster. I'm fighting a building. Anyways, cool monsters, decent graphics, post-apocalyptic environment. You get to play as a tank, and you know, that's really cool. So anyways, Metal Max Returns has to be making my list. It's not like, I get objectively, it's not like a great RPG in terms of the story or characters or anything, but just the gameplay I think is pretty unique. Alright, so number 25, Secret of Evermore, which came out in 1995. And this one was actually released in the West. In fact, this one was developed by a North American subsidiary, I believe, of Square. So if the name is alluding to Secret of Mana, like the Mana series, and you guys can see even this little menu thing is taken from Secret of Mana, yeah, that's because it is like kind of using a similar like the whole engine, I guess, than the whole gameplay perspective. Yeah, it's kind of like Secret of Mana in that sense. But except this one, I think, was developed exclusively for the North American market, which is interesting because usually you see a lot of RPGs on this list developed exclusively for the Japanese market and never got translated, right? Well, this is interesting because this RPG was developed specifically for the North American market. So it's like the opposite. You don't get to see that often. But anyways, what makes Secret of Evermore? I think objectively, no, it's not as good as Secret of Mana or Trials of Mana. But I still have fun with this game. And I think part of it is that, well, you're kind of similar to like God, Heed the Call to Awaken. You're this kid that gets transported into the future, or into the past actually. You get transported to different time periods, and you use like more contemporary weapons, like I'm using a bazooka here, right? And it's an action RPG, just like the other games in the Mana series. But I like this game, even though I would say, technically wise, yeah, I don't think the characters and story are as good as Secret of Mana or Trials of Mana, but yeah, it's still a fun, enjoyable game to play. So definitely still enjoy playing this game. Yeah, so action RPG, except you get to travel to different time periods, and that's pretty cool. The weapons you use are like pretty dependent on that time. Like here, I'm actually back to the past, and then before I had this bazooka weapon when I was in the future, right? So anyways, I just find this game pretty cool just for the setting. Yeah, I would say the setting is probably the thing that really makes me makes this game kind of memorable to me. The monsters, yeah, pretty interesting monsters too. So I would say it's the monsters and the setting and the colorful graphics, of course, that the Mana series is known for. It's what makes Secret of Evermore kind of memorable. So anyways, I'm not going to rank it as high as the other Mana games, but still deserves a mention on this. Number 24 is Star Ocean, the original Star Ocean. This is a game that never came out abroad. It was Japan only, so you had to pick up a fan translation if you want to play it. However, the remake or enhanced remastered version for the PSP, which is called First Departure, that one actually did get released in the West. So basically, most people's experience with Star Ocean 1 would probably come from the PSP version. However, the Super Nintendo version I think is still pretty good too. I mean, you go back to it, it's still very playable, and this was actually one of the most technologically advanced games released for the system. This 1996, very late era Super Nintendo games. The developers of Star Ocean, Tri-Ace, originally came from the Namco team that developed Tales of Fantasia. So everything I said about Tales of Fantasia applies here too. So you have the technologically advanced graphics, like I think they actually had to use a special chip in the cartridge because it was compressing so much graphics in there. So the graphics are, like they put so much graphical data in this game, they had to use a special chip. There's voice acting in this game, just like with Tales of Fantasia, except I think there's even more of it in Star Ocean. So I think, if anything, Star Ocean is actually even more advanced than Tales of Fantasia. So that makes it probably, one of the most technologically advanced games for the Super Nintendo, certainly for RPGs. Combat-wise, I think the devs wanted to even improve on Tales of Fantasia when it comes to the combat. So it is kind of similar to the Tales games in terms of combat, but a little bit more streamlined, I would say. So, overall Star Ocean, the story and everything is pretty decent. It's not quite as good as Star Ocean 2 or Star Ocean 3 till the end of time, but it's still pretty memorable, and I think that the first 3 Star Ocean games are generally considered to be the best ones. In this game, you basically everyone in your hometown is turning to stone, and eventually you and your friends get picked up by a group of space explorers, essentially, trying to find a cure, for the disease that's turning everyone into stone. So, anyways, most people's experience with this game would be the PSP version, but do pick up the SNES translation as well. I think it's still worth it to play the SNES game. I mean, like I said, the SNES version is one of the most technologically advanced games on the system, so it still holds up today, obviously. So, great looking game, decent story, soundtrack is good. Overall, very solid RPG. It's not the best game in the Star Ocean series, but just like with Tales of Fantasia, it's a very solid entry still. Alright, so number 23 is Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War. So this was released in 1996. It is the second of the 3 Super Nintendo Fire Emblem games, and none of the Super Nintendo Fire Emblem games got officially translated and released in the West, but you can play all of them with fan translations, of course. I think most people consider Genealogy of the Holy War and Thracia 776, the last 2 of the trilogy for SNES, to be better than the first one of the trilogy, which is Mystery of the Emblem. So, Mystery of the Emblem is an okay game, but Genealogy of the Holy War and Thracia are definitely better. I think Thracia is a little bit better than Genealogy. I mean, some people might argue the opposite, but Thracia is a little bit more difficult, but also a little bit more rewarding as well. Genealogy, the thing about Genealogy is it's still a difficult game, not quite as difficult as Thracia, but still difficult and challenging. The maps are massive in Holy War. Like, this is the first map of the game. Like, the first battle of the game.
Move a bit closer.
That's this entire video. This 1-hour video is just this one battle. Like, crazy, right? Like, most Fire Emblem games nowadays, like modern Fire Emblem games, like a map might take like maybe 20 minutes or even 30 minutes, but not an hour, right? Like the Genealogy of the Holy War, like, man, these maps are massive. Like this one map, the first map of the game, took an hour to beat. So it tells you it's not like it's difficult in terms of like Thracia is difficult because they just keep on like pummeling you with reinforcements all the time.
I don't know if I'm saving those.
Holy War is just
villages.
like the map's
Probably
huge,
not.
and you have like in this one you have like multiple castles to seize and stuff. So Yeah, it's just kind of a slog. I would say it's like a war of attrition. So I think in that aspect, I prefer 3CM more because yeah, it's not quite as much of a slog as Holy War is. But Holy War is still a great game. I mean, you still have great characters, a great story, and everything.
Your turn.
I think the Super Nintendo is well suited for Fire Emblem because the graphics and everything just work really well for it. I actually prefer 2D Fire Emblem games to 3D Fire Emblem games. And I think Super Nintendo just works really well for that. So the graphics look great on this. And yeah, overall, a great Fire Emblem game. Yeah, just I put 3AC a little bit above because, oh man, it's just kind of a slog to play Holy War. The maps are just so long. They're so big and yeah, it just takes a while to beat. Anyways, yep, that's it still makes it out to my top 25, of course. Alright, so number 22 is Super Robot Wars Gaiden, the Elemental Lords, released in 1996. So there's 4 Super Nintendo Super Robot Wars games. 3 of them are translated. Super Robot Wars 4 has not been translated, but the rest have. And this is probably my favorite out of the translated ones that I played. Just because, like, for most of the Super Robot Wars games, like, it doesn't look too realistic. It's like they're super deformed, right? So like they use the SD Gundam style. But for this one, the Elemental Lords, they're actually properly, like, more properly proportioned and stuff. So
whatever.
It looks a little bit more gritty and more mature. So it looks almost like an Escaflowne Evangelion style rather than SD Gundam style, which is what the regular Super Robot Wars series looks like. And other than that, it's your standard tactical RPG. So yeah, again, Final Fantasy Tactics or Fire Emblem style. And then when you do combat, you can see the mechs going at each other and stuff. Really cool. I recommend it to anyone who's a fan of mechs, actually, and tactical RPGs, because yeah, this is a great one. Out of all the Super Robot Wars games, this actually might be my favorite, just because I love that art style of using the more realistic looking mechs instead of the super deformed ones. The super deformed ones just look, you know, kind of kiddie like, but man, this one is definitely more like grittier, realistic looking. And yeah, again, recommended to everyone who's a fan of tactical RPGs and mech RPGs. Yeah, I mean, if you're into like Front Mission, you'll be into this one as well. I prefer this over Front Mission, Gun Hazard, even though that's a great game too. But yeah, like this is my favorite Super Robot Wars games. Isometric style, and yeah, you see these cool battle animations whenever you go up against people. 96, so it's a pretty late era Super Nintendo game, so everything looks really nice. The pixelated graphics and sprites look really good here, this being a late Super Nintendo game and everything. And yeah, just overall pretty unique amongst Super Robot Wars for being this art style, I would say, for being a little bit more realistic and gritty. So anyways, personally, I think this is yeah, my favorite out of the Super Robot Wars series, and certainly on the Super Nintendo. So yeah, anyways, that's why it makes this list. And yeah, just like the other Super Robot Wars games, it was never translated officially, so you just had to pick up fan translation online. Alright, so number 21 is Breath of Fire 2, which is a pretty good JRPG. It's just that out of the Breath of Fire series, I think I generally prefer 3 and 4 more on the PS1, but 2 is still pretty good. Definitely not a bad JRPG by any means. Yeah, I just felt like, you know, 3 and 4 had more interesting characters and story for me. But I think all the games in the Breath of Fire series are generally pretty good. Wish Capcom would release, like, you know, release all of the first 4 in an official collection or something. I'm not counting any of the Breath of Fire games after 4, because like the mobile stuff sucks. But yeah, definitely, I think the first 4 Breath of Fire games, Capcom should just definitely release them in a collection or something. They need to be re-released, because they're all pretty good. But yeah, Breath of Fire 2, yeah, just an all-around pretty solid JRPG. I would say that just because there's so many great Super Nintendo JRPGs, that's why it's not further higher on this list. And by the way, if you guys are looking at this game footage right now, you're thinking, hey, that's not Super Nintendo, it looks way too colorful and bright, and that's because it's the Game Boy Advance version. Yeah. I didn't actually play the Super Nintendo version on my channel yet, because I played the Game Boy Advance version instead, which is, like, judging from the reviews, the Game Boy Advance version seems to be similar to the Super Nintendo version in reviews. It's not like Tales of Fantasia, where it's like a lot worse than the original release or something. So yeah, you just get the more colorful, brighter, cutesy art aesthetic of Game Boy Advance instead of the more darker, grittier color palette of the Super Nintendo. But still, yeah, I mean, you know, still the same game, right? So anyways, overall, pretty solid. You guys saw the combat system, right? It's your typical turn-based. Let's see, yeah. Yeah, so you fight monsters that look like this. Again, I think probably it'll look a bit better on the Super Nintendo. But yeah, I decided to go with the Game Boy Advance version. Because, well, it came out later. So, anyways, and both the Game Boy Advance and Super Nintendo version seems to be similar in terms of rating. So, yeah. Anyways, definitely looks a little bit more bright and colorful here. Yeah. Overall, okay story, okay characters, all pretty decent and stuff, just solid. But it's not like, it's not in my top 20 just because there's a lot of great Super Nintendo RPGs, right? But still, Breath of Fire 2 is good. It's not my favorite in the series. I know a lot of people love Breath of Fire 2, but personally, just still prefer 3 and 4 more. Yeah, but they're all pretty good. You know, not saying any Breath of Fire game is bad or anything. And the original game, I think, came out in 1995. Alright, so number 20 is Lufia 2, Rise of the Sinistrals, which was a 1996 game for the Super Nintendo. Fairly late era Super Nintendo game, so that's why the graphics are pretty vibrant here. So yeah, this is a great game. A lot of people who have played Lufia 2 knows it's one of the great RPGs on the Super Nintendo. And really, I would probably rate it around same thing as Breath of Fire 2 and some of the other games coming up. Yeah, like they're all really around the same tier. So the next 4 or 5 games, and this one is in Breath of Fire 2, I would consider it be all around roughly the same tier. So don't think that just because one is higher than the other or lower, it's like not like too much difference. It was really hard for me to make this list because like these games are all really good and all close to each other. But anyways, yeah. Lufia 2 Rise of the Sinistrals, just a very solid RPG all around. It's a great story and characters, mechanics. Yeah, if anything, like I think that maybe the dialogue, I think like if they can put like portraits or something like that, would have been a little bit better. Because the graphical style otherwise is pretty good.
Ooh, these puzzles.
Really colorful and stuff like that. But yeah, the dialogue, I felt like, yeah, they could have polished that up a little bit more. Then you have these dungeon areas where you have to solve, yeah, you have to solve them basically because there are a bunch of traps and stuff in the dungeons.
What?
Yeah, I think I was in this dungeon for a while here. And the combat here, let's show this. Yeah, so it's your behind-the-shoulder combat system. The monster's okay. I mean, definitely not bad or anything like that. Yeah, so it's your pretty typical JRPG combat. Plays Maxim is the main character in this game. This is actually a prequel to Lufia 1, by the way. Yeah, it's these like text boxes that I really like, kind of remind me of old school RPGs. But other than that, I mean, pretty solid all around. Pretty similar ranking for this and Breath of Fire 2 because I was just like, there's just so many great Super Nintendo games, right? So, yeah. I mean, I just feel like this game, even though it does everything well, character, story, graphics, and everything, the combat, they're all fine. Just there's other games more ahead of it that, you know, I maybe enjoyed a little bit more. But, you know, Lufia 2 is still a good game, so that's why it's on the list. And, yeah, recommend it to everyone. Alright, so just ahead of Lufia 2 on the list at number 19 is Secret of Mana, which came out in 1993. Again, very colorful game. Like these bright, colorful graphics, I think are, especially in Secret of Mana, I think really stand out. Now, a lot of people might have ranked this game higher, because I hear Secret of Mana is like, this game gets mentioned a lot, as in like one of the top 5 RPGs for Super Nintendo, but I don't rate it quite that high. I mean, there's a lot of good things about Secret of Mana. The story is very strong. The graphical style, art style is very colorful, very bright, and music, classic music. I mean, this is like Squaresoft, right? This is like Square in their prime in the 90s. So, yeah, can't really go wrong with that. A lot of people consider this their favorite Mana game. But for me, I think I prefer Trials of Mana a little bit more. And I know it's pretty close. Like, I think Trials and Secret are both pretty close. Personally, I just prefer Trials of Mana a little bit more. You know, a little bit more mechanics in that one. But a lot of people like Secret of Mana better for the stronger story. So, I understand that. But yeah, these games are all close to each other, like I said. It's hard to really make a definitive ranking for me, and it was all pretty close to each other. What gets me a Secret of Mana is, of course, I played this when I was a kid, this being one of the most famous Super Nintendo RPGs. Probably is the most famous if you're talking about action RPGs, because there wasn't too many action RPGs back then. Like most of the majority of RPGs back in those days, like the Japanese RPGs, the majority were turn-based. So to have an action RPG is not very common. Like only the Mana series and Ys, and I can't think of many more actually. I mostly go to Ys and Mana if I think of like action RPGs from this era, right? It wasn't too many. Oh, and Terra Enigma, of course, as well, the Quintet trilogy. But yeah, for the most part, have good memories of this game. It's just that as I play more and more Super Nintendo RPGs, I don't come back to Secret of Mana as much anymore. I just think it was really good for the time, and people have a lot of good memories with this game and the bright, cheerful, colorful aesthetic of this game. But yeah, as I play other RPGs, there's just so many great SNES RPGs, right? I don't find myself coming back to this one as much. So, anyways, still makes my list in my top 20, of course. It's a great game. A lot of people have in their top 10, but for me, I just have a lot of other RPGs I think I prefer rather than this one, right? Alright, so coming right after Secret of Mana is Trials of Mana at number 18, the sequel, Seiken Densetsu 3. And I think it's pretty close between the two. I mean, you can go either way. I personally prefer Trials a little bit more. I mean, you get the multiple classes that you can choose from, multiple characters to choose from. You have 6 different characters to choose from. You have a day-night system. So there's a few extra features added. I feel like, yes, Secret of Mana does have a stronger story and probably the better soundtrack as well. But Trials of Mana is still really good. So you can go either way, right? All these games are really close to each other. Yeah, and the original Trials of Mana originally wasn't really released.
2D, I think
wasn't really released abroad. It's Japan only.
In order to make it 3D,
only recently it got a release abroad with a collection of Mana series. So for the longest time, you had to play a fan translation basically if you wanted to play this game. But recently we did get an official translation, which is nice. So yeah, other than that, again, pretty close between this and Secret of Mana. It's just that you have multiple characters to choose from, so you have a lot of replay value with Trials of Mana that you don't get necessarily with Secret of Mana. And you get the same colorful, bright graphics that you got in Secret of Mana as well. Yeah, so pretty good. I'm playing as the princess girl here, right? Yeah. And this originally came out in 1995, so 2 years after Secret of Mana. So should be a little bit more technically advanced as well. I think people just have more fond memories of Secret of Mana because that's the one that got officially released in the US and in abroad, but I think if Trials of Mana or Seiken Densetsu 3, if it originally came out, if it got an official release abroad back then, I think people would remember it just as fondly, right? It's just that I think it got released later, so that's hence why it doesn't really get remembered as fondly, but yeah, and you still have the action RPG mechanics, of course, that you get in all the Mana games here, which again stands out for the time, because at the time it's mostly turn-based RPGs. But anyways, I personally put Trials of Mana ahead of Secret of Mana. That's just me. Okay, number 17 is Final Fantasy IV, and honestly, I think 4 and 5 are actually pretty close. That's just my opinion. Well, again, this is my list, right? My list, my opinion. It's all subjective, but yeah, for me, Final Fantasy IV, and this is the Pixel Remaster, by the way, if you guys are wondering, it's not the original Super Nintendo version. I played the Pixel Remaster on my channel. So that's the footage you're seeing now, which is why the text boxes and dialogue boxes might look a little bit weird. It looks, yeah, a little bit too clean. I think it's almost like too PC-like in a way. But yeah, Final Fantasy IV is a pretty landmark title for Final Fantasy. I think many people would consider it one of the top 5 Final Fantasy games. It's just like the first 3 Final Fantasy games, I think they're good, but they're not like great. And I think Final Fantasy IV was the first Final Fantasy game chronologically that was actually great.
Nice.
Oh my god, this girl's like stripping. Yeah, so it was the first Final Fantasy game that most people would probably consider a great Final Fantasy game. The story and everything's kind of crazy. Like, eventually you end up fighting like a space wizard on the moon, I think. You play as Cecil, this Dragoon Knight right here.
Now the water
but yeah, it's a kind of a crazy story, but it really sets into place a lot of the standards that you expect in Final Fantasy. You got a classic side view combat right here that you would associate with Super Nintendo Final Fantasy games. Like, all 3 of the Super Nintendo Final Fantasy games, I would say, are great games. And yeah, Final Fantasy IV is a classic. It's iconic. It was released as Final Fantasy II in America originally. But yeah, this was one of the 2 Super Nintendo Final Fantasy games that Americans got. So, I mean, that people abroad got, Western people. So yeah, I think most people probably have good, fond memories if they play it, if they grew up with this game.
You have to attack an
But anyways, I just think that Final Fantasy V, I personally like, you know, the job classes of Final Fantasy V a little bit more, but I know the story and the villain in Final Fantasy IV is stronger. I understand that. So this is again the Secret of Mana versus Trials of Mana thing. You can go either way, 4 versus 5. I personally just prefer 5 a little bit more, but 4 is a really good game too. That's why it's on this list. Alright, so yeah, like I said, Final Fantasy IV and then Final Fantasy V. This is at number 16 here. Also playing the Pixel Remaster version that that I got. Because it is just the latest version, right? So the latest version of Final Fantasy V you can play is the Pixel Remaster for PC. The original game came out in 1992, 1 year after Final Fantasy IV. Again, just like with Trials versus Secret of Mana, I think this is a very personal preference thing. I prefer Final Fantasy V a little bit more because of all the different job classes and stuff. That's the main draw of this game. Because of that, there's so much replayability. Just like with Trials of Mana, I found Trials of Mana has more replayability than Secret of Mana. Final Fantasy V, I think, also has more replayability than Final Fantasy IV, even if the story and the characters aren't quite as strong as Final Fantasy IV. Yeah, the villain is a little bit lame in this one, but anyways, yeah, the characters and villain aren't quite as strong. The story isn't quite as strong, but it makes up for it in the variety of job classes, right? So I think that's the main thing about this one. And yeah, again, maybe I value replayability, or I value variety. But you can go either way, right? Again, this is just like the Secret of Mana versus Trials of Mana thing. Do you value a stronger story, stronger characters, or a more cohesive story, I should say, over replayability? You know, it can go either way. But Final Fantasy V originally did not get released in America or abroad. Originally Japan only. I think the first time that Westerners got to play this game was the PS1 Final Fantasy Anthology, I think, was the first time they got to see Final Fantasy V. But yeah, this was a Japan only release, which is why it's kind of weird where like people are like, hey, jump from Final Fantasy 3 to Final Fantasy 7. Yeah, because yeah, and anyways, it's a solid Final Fantasy game. All the Super Nintendo Final Fantasy games are great, and Final Fantasy V is there as well, you know. And of course, just like with the other Super Nintendo Final Fantasy games, you get the classic side-scrolling combat here. Like here on a ship thing. Yeah, I think we're in some sort of whirlpool here, and then yeah, you fight this giant lobster scorpion creature here. Classic side-scrolling combat. So, anyways, I think it's a little bit underrated for Final Fantasy games. I mean, all the Final Fantasy games are famous because it's one of the most famous JRPG franchises. But out of Final Fantasy games, 5 is a little bit underrated because it's actually a really good game. Just people don't talk about it as much because it came out to US later. That's why. But yeah, I think it's still worth a pick up if you guys haven't played it before. Yeah, Pixel Remaster has all the first 6. The number 15 is Fire Emblem Thracia 776, the final Fire Emblem game for the Super Nintendo. There was 3, and this one came out in 2000, which makes it one of the latest Super Nintendo games. I think it's because initially you can only get it with like some online service or something like that. Yeah, it came out pretty late, but I think it's probably the best one out of the 3. I mean, some people might argue Holy War, but I like Thracia a little bit better. Very strong characters, very strong story. And overall, like, this is considered to be one of the most difficult Fire Emblem games. It's pretty brutal in difficulty. Like, the enemy reinforcements just keep coming and coming and coming. They just keep throwing these guys at you. So it is challenging and tough, but I would say it's worth it. I think the juice is worth the squeeze with this one. Definitely, if you guys haven't played it, check it out, because none of the Fire Emblem Super Nintendo games has been officially released in the West, but you can pick up fan translations for all these. Yeah, overall, graphics, great. Story, great. Characters, great. I think that both Holy War and Thracia are significantly, like, well, noticeably better than Mystery of the Emblem. So I would suggest, yeah, either of these two over Mystery of the Emblem. But for me, Thracia, just because I think Holy War can be a bit of a slog sometimes, as I mentioned. Thracia isn't a slog in the same way. Like, the map isn't like gigantically large like it is in Holy War, but you do have to fight all these reinforcements. So I guess it could be considered a slog by some people, just in a different way. But I do think the characters and story are a little bit stronger in Thracia, in my opinion. But it's close, yeah. Anyways, if you guys are like the classic Fire Emblem, you know, tactical strategy, combat, and everything, yeah, if you guys are into all that, definitely check out Thracia 776. I think it's definitely worth a check out. At 14, I have Bahamut Lagoon, which came out in 1996, and it's a Square Enix game. And yeah, this is another Japan-only JRPG as well, which is unfortunate. I think this is another one of these great Square games that fortunately they still have not officially released in the West yet for some reason. They released Romancing Saga 3 and 2 actually now as well. And they released yeah, Seiken Densetsu 3 Trials of Mana and Live Alive. But Bahamut Lagoon still has not been officially released, unfortunately. But it's a nice game, beautiful graphics as you would expect from a late Super Nintendo game. Tactical RPG, except you control dragons, so that's something pretty cool, right? You can control all these like cool looking dragons and stuff.
Take him down.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to. You can control the main guys like here, but you can also sub in a dragon. But if you guys are like used to Final Fantasy style combat, yeah, it's tactical, but once you get into the combat interface, it's like the Final Fantasy style combat. And then you can summon dragons and stuff if you want, which of course do more damage and stuff. So overall, pretty cool concept for a game, I would say. Kind of a twist ending. I think people always get surprised about the ending of this game because the good guy doesn't necessarily like win, I guess, at the end. So I would say the good guy doesn't necessarily get the girl at the end in this one. So yeah, overall, a cool story, great graphics. It's cool controlling dragons and stuff in a tactical RPG. But yeah, there's so many great Super Nintendo RPGs, right? Anyways, I have it in my top 15. It's a pretty good one, and if you guys haven't checked it out, go pick up the fan translation for this one. I highly recommend it. Yeah, especially if you like the tactical, like Fire Emblem type stuff, tactical RPGs, and Square games like Final Fantasy, then definitely check it out. Number 13, Adventures of Horai High Transfer Student Drama Bomb, which came out in 1996. Pretty late era Super Nintendo game. Yeah, this one, it kind of surprised me because I played this one like fairly recently, and then it fairly rose up, I guess, in my list of Super Nintendo games, because it's very quirky. It's got this, a lot of people I recommended this game to said it's got Earthbound vibes. And I kind of understand, like, Earthbound is this quirky RPG for Super Nintendo that everyone knows about. And Horai High is one that's not very well known about. It's a Japan-only RPG, never came over abroad, so most people don't know about it. But once they see like the screenshots and the gameplay, they're like, yeah, it looks kind of like Earthbound, but
I remember those things.
Not really Earthbound,
you don't see those anymore.
But I guess so with some of the dialogue and quirkiness, it's a fun game. I think what I like about it is that you can join all these different clubs in the game, and that effectively is kind of similar to the Final Fantasy V job classes, except you're in a school. You're in this massive school on this island, actually, and you join all these different clubs, which you can change your abilities.
It's my fault again.
And things like that. You can pick out the fan translation, and I think it's pretty
Gyoza,
hilarious,
ramen,
actually, the fan
fried
translation
rice,
version.
miso ramen, and special
Yeah,
bolognese.
so I like the
Cell
setting
phones
being in this
available.
giant high school.
Like early cell phones.
And the enemies are like people that you
games.
find
I'm
in the
gonna
high
join the gamer
school,
club.
which is pretty funny.
Okay, join the computer
Yeah,
club.
bright, colorful graphics. You know, it's a late era Super Nintendo
Curious
game,
what
so
the
that's
other
good too.
clubs are.
Yeah,
Let's
so
stay in the
overall,
high-tech
just a
building.
fun
We
game to
don't
play.
have any
I think
money,
pretty
I think,
quirky and
so.
everything like that. I wouldn't say that the
I'd earn
story is
some money
especially
by
strong or anything like
beating
that,
some guys,
or
but
the
I haven't really
characters. The
seen
characters are
how to
not,
do combat
you know,
yet.
especially strong or memorable.
Committee's
But just
building.
for the quirky dialogue and gameplay, right?
I guess
that's
we had
why I
to,
like it. And this is
auto
yeah. So you see
apologize.
this type of combat. It's like the
Legend.
Dragon
Oh,
Quest
that's
style
auto,
from
okay.
first person.
What's
and
apologize?
Because of
apologize
how
is basically the same thing as sweet.
yeah, because of how cool, again, unique the characters look. Again, a lot of people go to Earthbound, but yep,
Yeah.
monsters. The monsters are
Public
actually just
safety
like
officials.
yeah, other
Yeah,
people at
right.
the school. You have some pretty unique takes though on some of the different people that you face
Give
here.
me some.
So, anyways,
Why does it keep going?
enemies
to
are cool, very quirky and unique looking. Dialogue is funny, and overall, I like the setting as well, being in the giant high school, and the graphics are nice too. So, anyways, it's in my top 15.
Okay,
I know the
good.
characters in
Academics.
story aren't particularly strong. but
Academics is like an ability.
yeah,
Is like
I just grew to like this game more and more. Actually, I love quirky RPGs. All right, speaking of quirky RPGs, number 12 is Live Alive, which came out originally in '94 for the Super Nintendo in Japan only. This got a release in the West later via remake. So the remake came out a couple of years ago. The remake's really beautiful looking, and I highly recommend it. It's a great RPG. So yeah, the original Live Alive game also looks really good too. So yeah, and if you want to play the original, you basically have to pick up a fan translation, because I don't think the original was ever released abroad.
Get out of this.
Yeah, but the remake, I prefer the remake, but still, we're talking about Super Nintendo games, right? So yeah, Live Alive, it's quirky as well. It's unique. You get to play as 7 different characters. They're all different. They're spread across different time periods. And they're all like kind of unique in their own way. The combat's like turn-based combat on a grid. With these crazy looking enemies, as you guys can see. And then eventually, like the stories of different characters, like tied together. You got 2 different extra scenarios at the end. So yeah, overall, when I played Live Alive, I was like, yeah, this is a pretty cool, unique JRPG for sure. Definitely recommend checking it out. But yeah, you can choose like different time periods. Each of the time periods, you can play as a different type of character. And I'm very happy that it got finally officially released in the West in the form of the remake, which is actually an even better looking game. But yeah, the original, if you guys want to play the original, yeah, let's pick up the fan translation. Yeah, graphics are, I mean, it's 1994. It's okay for 1994, it's pretty good. Enemies are unique. It's a quirky game. And you have to play as multiple different characters, so it's got replay value. So, anyways, I think the only thing is Live Alive, the story's a bit short. The story could be a little bit stronger, could be longer, but overall, I do like this game. It's, my top 15. Alright, so number 11 is Illusion of Gaia, which came out in 1994 for the Super Nintendo. It's the second game of the Quintet trilogy of RPGs for Super Nintendo, all published by Enix. What I like about Illusion of Gaia, and I think Illusion of Gaia, everyone who plays this game, I think might consider this one of the best Super Nintendo games, right? Yeah, just RPG or otherwise, just because, like,
No, the pigs.
I like the graphics on it, first of all. For 1994, these graphics are pretty solid. I think one of the best looking 1994 RPGs I've ever seen.
princess, not my sister.
And I really do like the whole concept of this game. You play as one of 3 different characters. Each of them has special abilities, and you use that to traverse essentially different parts of the world that have different landmarks and stuff. So that's pretty cool. Like in one area you might visit the Great Wall of China, another area you might visit the Great Pyramids and stuff, and I do like that historical that historical aspect of this game too. So yeah, I like the concept of this game, the different characters, the graphics and everything, and you put that together and you get an overall very strong title, actually. Just outside of my top 10, I would say I still prefer Terra Enigma. A lot of people prefer Illusion of Gaia over Terra Enigma, which is the third game in the Quintet trilogy. I guess because I play Terra Enigma a little bit more.
Yeah, it's an action RPG, so.
But Illusion of Gaia is still a great game. There's no random. Very strong title here. Just love all the different cool dungeons that you can go to, all like based on different parts of the world, different famous areas of the world and stuff. Yeah, very strong title. So, anyways, Illusion of Gaia. I have to put it on my list here. Just love the gameplay. It's pretty cool. Graphics, you know, the setting, all the different locations that you can go to and travel to. Pretty cool. Oh yeah, and just like other games in the Quintet trilogy, this is a action RPG. So that also makes it a little bit unique too, because yeah, not many action RPGs out around this time. Most are turn-based.
I mean, the golden age of piracy.
So number 10 is Uncharted Waters New Horizons, which is actually a port of a PC-88 game. But yeah, this came out in 1994 for the Super Nintendo. One of the most underrated RPGs on the Super Nintendo that was released in the West originally. It's just that many people didn't know about this or didn't check it out or something. I like this game because it's actually really unique. It's set during the Age of Discovery. So like you're basically well, I want to say pirate, but you're essentially like a pirate. One of the characters, actually the Catalina, the one I'm playing as, actually is a pirate. But there's a bunch of other characters you can choose from. I think you can choose like 6 different characters. Each of them has a different background. You can be like a merchant or whatever. I chose to be the pirate in this playthrough. But I know the graphics look a bit simplistic. So, you know, the graphics aren't the best part of this game. But the gameplay is very varied in this game, because not only do you have the typical going around town talking to NPCs part of the game, but when you actually like sail out into the ocean, then you have to like you have crew management here, you have inventory management like this, you have the resource management, and you have ship management. You can buy different ships, you can buy different resources and stuff, and then when you're actually sailing, then you have the different ship battles, which is like a totally different part of the game, and the combat looks totally different. And you have different types of combat too. You have the ship combat and you have the 1 versus 1 combat. So let me show actually what that kind of looks like. So here I'm sailing on my ship here, and I can engage another ship in battle. So this is a Turkish battle fleet here.
Knight, really?
Oh, okay. I guess I can attack that guy. Here we go. So here I attack this guy, and this is like a 1 versus 1 fight.
Oh, what?
So I can do a 1 versus 1 fight here, where I use different cards, I think,
combat interface.
to, yeah, I use different cards to gain the advantage or something like that. So you have a 1 versus 1 combat. And then in addition to that, you have a tactical part where it's a ship combat. So you have this tactical part where it's like turn-based and it's a ship combat. And then you also have the 1 versus 1 combat as well. It's interesting, unique. I've never seen it done in any other RPG of this era. And then in addition to that, you have the traditional JRPG, you know, thing where you go around town and talk to people, you buy and sell stuff. But you also have resource management, you have crew management, you have ship management. Like, so much going on in this game. The gameplay of this game is crazy.
Wow, that's so expensive.
Anyways, that's why I have to put it in my top 10.
Would be a very new
a ton of gameplay that you have in this game. The music, I didn't even talk about the music. The music is great too. Just like
Sexton is pretty much
very beautiful music that you hear in this game. One of my favorite soundtracks of the Super Nintendo. Okay, number 9, I have Warriors Legend of the Blue Dragon, which came out in 1997, which is a pretty late Super Nintendo game. This is a really unique game too. So first you have this overworld interface, which looks just like any other action RPG, right?
How do you get over there?
So you just go around and talk to people. But when you talk to NPCs, it's like this first-person view.
Yeah.
It's not like in a typical RPG where you just see a dialogue come up. You actually just see like this first-person view when you talk to them. And you can actually look around. Like you go into a house here, you can actually look around, and you talk to them directly, like face-to-face in a first-person view. That's pretty unique. And then you also have this little flying cat character around with you as well. Now, the combat in this game is pretty interesting. Basically, it's a side-scrolling view when you go into the combat here. I think the only other game I've seen this do this on the Super Nintendo was the Holy Umbrella. I think Dondera's Wild.
Yeah, I have
but
to,
this,
I have
this
to
is
use
a pretty
the
unique
monster
thing,
to
though.
carry me up. I can't jump.
So you can use the little cat monster
Or
to
Mina, I
carry
should
you
say
up,
that, the name
and
right here,
yeah,
this
the combat
monster.
interface is just unique. It's like this
actually-
side-scrolling view here, but it's also turn-based at the same time, which is really unique. And let's see. So yeah, you have the standard thing here. You can talk to people, and the cat's the flying cat thing is just there. So yeah, the dialogue is unique because like I don't know any other game you have like this first-person view when you just talk. Like most of the time in a JRPG,
So she
right, you
wasn't
just see a
taken?
dialogue
Oh, no, it's a quick
box
Okina,
pop up.
okay.
You don't get this first-person
Yeah,
view, which
Nami
is
got
pretty
taken.
cool. But yeah, then you have this side-scrolling view. And this is unique because the monsters don't really move until you move, which means it actually is kind of turn-based, but it's like a turn-based side-scrolling combat, which is interesting. It's almost like a dungeon crawler in that sense. So again, I haven't seen this type of combat used before. It's like the enemies don't move until you move, but in a side-scrolling view.
Oh my god.
In a platformer view,
Can't do
actually.
this thing.
So anyways, very unique. That's why this game has to make my top 10.
Yeah.
It's such a unique game. And the story is, I didn't talk, the story and the characters are pretty solid too. Yeah, graphics are solid, because this is a pretty late era Super Nintendo game. Graphics are solid, characters are solid, story is solid. Gameplay is unique, as you guys can see. So yeah, overall, very, very solid
the
game.
other one?
That makes my top 10. And another Japan-only release, so you had to pick up a fan translation if you want to play this. Right, number 8 on my list is Earthbound, otherwise known as Mother 2. This is the only Mother game that was ever released officially in the West. Personally, I think I might still prefer Mother 3 a little bit more. But yeah, Earthbound, I think it's a fairly famous RPG now. It used to be kind of like this sleeper hit. Not the sleeper hit, actually, it wasn't even a hit. It used to be this hidden gem. Yeah, sorry, I was thinking of the wrong term. Hidden gem. Yeah, it used to be a hidden gem, but now everyone kind of knows about it now. So what's really interesting about Earthbound is how quirky and unique it is. First of all, it's set in like this 1960s Americana setting. You play as Ness, and then you have you eventually get 3 other characters. One of them is actually named Pooh, believe it or not. Well, you can name them whatever you want, but anyways, by default. The combat interface is pretty unique. You have this first-person perspective with this rolling counter. And this actually inspired a lot of indie RPGs that you see recently, like Undertale. Yeah, this rolling like counter is pretty unique. Don't think I've seen that in other RPGs of the time. The first-person perspective, yes, you see that in Dragon Quest and in other RPGs. But also the fact that you can kind of like reason with the enemy and stuff. You don't have to like fight them. You can reason with the enemy, and the monsters are unique too. And I think everyone who's played Earthbound knows that the monsters are kind of crazy in Earthbound. Like you have all sorts of monsters. Oh, here's a Starman. He's one of the iconic enemies that you face in Earthbound. Then the story is really crazy too, right? I mean, it's a lot of it is just like messing up with your mind, right? A Gygas, I mean, yeah, like it's kind of crazy. The whole story and all the enemies are just crazy. I mean, the whole game is just weird and quirky and unique. I think that's what people remember about Earthbound is how crazy and unique it is. So yeah, crazy kind of psychological story that kind of F's with your mind. Crazy enemies, very unique. I mean, you can fight like what, piles of vomit, I think, and stuff like that in this game. Like it's crazy. Gameplay and the settings unique. So it's just overall, yeah, and you got the nice colorful graphics as well. 1995, it's a fairly late era Super Nintendo game, so graphics are pretty good. Yeah, I think just overall, I think people rank Earthbound as one of the best RPGs on the Super Nintendo, just based off its uniqueness. Yeah? I would say that gameplay-wise, yeah, it's not perfect. There's definitely a lot of annoying things about the gameplay, but overall, still a very solid RPG. Yeah, it just stands out because of how unique and quirky it is, mostly. And yeah, just everything about it, the story, the characters, gameplay, combat, everything's just really kind of crazy and unique. Yeah, anyways, Earthbound, I think it's pretty famous now. Everyone probably knows about this one. Alright, so number 7 at Far East of Eden 0. Tangai Makyo is a series that unfortunately none of them ever came over to None of them
You
ever
set the
got
time before
officially
you start
translated
playing,
and released in
and
the
the time
West,
is now
so you
that
got to
time
pick up a
period
fan
will
translation.
rested. Time flows
Far
the
East of
same
Eden
way
Zero
that
is
doesn't
the
move also.
Tengai
2 years
Makyo
from now,
entry
2 years
for
That's
Super
really
Nintendo, which came out in
interesting.
1995.
If your birthday there, that's your birthday here in
Like the
Japan as
graphics a
well.
lot,
Wow.
very colorful, as you expect from a late era Nintendo game.
Basically, the time you set in the equivalent Nintendo flows in real life.
Oh yeah, so the time of this game is pretty unique too. So whatever you set in this game, however much time passes in real life actually affects the game, and it's really cool that way too. So you got a unique time system in this game.
Same day that we could actually.
And yeah, this game's very colorful. Graphics are great. Character and stories pretty memorable. I'd say overall, it's definitely one of the best games never to that hasn't been officially released in the West yet from the Super Nintendo era. I mean, you can pick up the fan translation, and I highly recommend it because yeah, this is it's one of those hidden gems, you know, and this is why I like playing a lot of these JRPGs that have never been like officially released. You see the fan translations on CD Romance or ROM Hacking or whatever, and you check them out, and I was like, wow, this is a great game. I really wish we got this in the West, and really wish it was officially released. You can see the combat here is also pretty cool. The sprite work is just amazing here. Yeah, you have this behind the shoulder view, as you do in Phantasy Star. And then you have the really crazy looking enemies as you do in Earthbound.
So this is like
Of course, the art style, I think I prefer the art style in this game over Earthbound and a lot of other Super Nintendo games. The art style is just great.
I mean, in general,
very colorful, very like, yeah, I mean, look at this. This enemy right here, right? Really crazy looking, but still detailed. So yeah, really wish we got this game in the West, but anyways, you can definitely pick it up with fan translation. But highly recommend it because yeah, I love the combat in this game. I love the graphics, the presentation, and art style. Some unique things about this game, just like the time system and everything, and. Oh, also this game used a special compression chip, just like Star Ocean. So this is actually pretty technically advanced for the time too. So definitely one of the most technically advanced Super Nintendo games, right? Along with Tales of Fantasia and Star Ocean. And yeah, like whatever you set the time to in this game, in real life or whatever, will affect whatever some events in this game. So that's pretty cool. And no repetition of enemy sprites is what I read about this game. So that's also really cool as well. Anyways. If you haven't checked out this game, I highly recommend it. It was on my list, greatest Super Nintendo JRPGs that never got an official release in the West. So yeah, go check it out. Alright, so number 6 is Glory of Heracles 4, Gift from the Gods, which came out in 1994.
Nice
Another Japan-only
here.
release, so you gotta pick up the fan
I wouldn't call
translation
it
for
this
this
Greek
one.
bath, right?
What's
I was
cool
gonna
about
say
this
Roman
game
bath,
is
but they're not Roman.
that
Greek bath.
first the setting,
Nice.
which is if the name hasn't given away yet, it's
not
got some
actual
characters
Greek
from
bath,
ancient
never been
Greece
to
here.
Greece, but,
But more than that, a lot of interesting stuff going on in this game.
Like defend Zeus.
Yeah, so you're in a world which is like, you know, referencing ancient Greeks, and you're bowing down to all the gods, the ancient Greek gods and stuff like that. That's all in this game. Heracles, which is Hercules, the Roman name for Heracles, actually appears in this game and helps you. You also get to fight alongside Plato, the ancient Greek philosopher. That alone is pretty awesome too. Combat's like this. It's like this first-person view, just like in Dragon Quest. But they're like Greek monsters, right? Like mythological monsters.
First-person
so you have like a Nemean lion here,
Quest.
right? So that's
Obviously turn-based.
That's pretty cool as well. Graphics-wise, it's not like great, but that's because it's a 1994 game. So I mean, it's 1994, so I can't expect the graphics to be that good. It's not Illusion of Gaia or anything. But I would say that just the setting, I love the setting, that the ancient Greek references and everything, and the combat's pretty, you know, this is the combat you would find in a lot of other JRPGs. However, you do have all these other skills that you can use. You can pray to different gods, and yeah, you can use like different elemental attacks here. That's pretty cool. And then yeah, the enemies are like based off of Greek mythology, and your party member is also based off of Greek mythology too.
Sword arts every turn, since they don't take up any.
So that's pretty cool. I would say the most unique thing about this game though is the fact that you can actually, like, you can become another person in this game. Like you can transfer your
see what's
soul
down
into
here.
different
Oh, no, that's it.
characters, and that's really cool. So this is after I died, and then after I died, I'm in some kind of spirit realm, and I can I actually play as a dog here. So yeah, this is the overworld view, and I play as a dog initially, but then I can transfer my soul into other characters as well. So while I'm the dog, I still have the dog attacks and everything like that. But here, for example, I can
follow me back.
I can transfer my soul
bring you all
into
the
that
sheep
of
back
the
to your
shepherd,
house.
and then I can turn into the shepherd. Yeah, so then I can turn into the shepherd, and then I think I take over some other people's bodies as well. So you can transfer your soul into other characters and other NPCs, which is just unique. I don't know any other RPG where I can do, like, in this era where I can do something like that. That's pretty crazy.
Jump to the... Okay.
Here I'm just taking over the body of a priestess, I think. Yeah, body of priestess, and I went to some shrine here. So yeah, I love the setting, the ancient Greek setting, the enemies all based off of Greek mythology, the party members too as well, but also the unique gameplay aspect of being able to transfer your soul into different characters, and you retain that too. You can actually just transfer your soul into those characters at any time, and there's a whole list of them. It's like a Pokemon Pokedex list. You can like there's all these different NPCs that you can transfer your soul into. I'm not saying you can transfer your soul into everyone, but a lot of NPCs. So it's very unique gameplay wise, which is why it's number 6 on my list. So yeah, highly recommend checking the fan translation for this one out. Too bad I never came over to the West. Alright, so number 5 is my favorite action RPG for the Super Nintendo, and that's Terranigma, the final game of the Quintet trilogy, all published by Enix. Yeah, this was released in 1996, one of the later Super Nintendo games. Graphically, you can tell it's a later Super Nintendo game because it looks amazing. Just beautiful pixelated art right here. Music is amazing. I think this Krista theme, like, if I ever want to just relax, sit down and relax, I think of this Krista theme. It's just so beautiful. Yeah, I played this a lot as a kid. I know that some people think Illusion of Gaia is better, but personally, I just, sentimental reasons, I have Terranigma higher. It's a great game. The whole story about... I mean, the story is actually pretty complex, right? You have to go to these 5 different towers to revive the different continents of the Earth and unfreeze the people in the town. And then you find out that you were actually used by this dark entity, and then you get, like, the whole thing about resurrection and everything and the cycle of life. It's a pretty complex story, actually, about how everything, like the existence of everything, right? Existential, yeah, I would say. This game has a lot of philosophical points about the existence of things, and in life and death and reincarnation. All those topics are explored in this game, and all the time you as the main character Ark have to also save the beloved L as well. So anyways, man, I love the story, graphics. Even the main character Ark, who reminds me a little bit of Chrono from Chrono Trigger. I mean, just look at his hairstyle. Gameplay wise, it's an action RPG, just like other games in the Quintet series. And you might be wondering, why didn't I mention Soul Blazer, right? Illusion of Gaia and Terranigma are just superior to Soul Blazer, in my opinion. Soul Blazer was the first game in the trilogy, but it's just hard to go back to. I played it, but it's a rough game compared to Illusion and Terranigma. I just think those two are just better games. So that's why I didn't mention Soul Blazer as much. But yeah, beginning of the game, you find that everyone in the town has been frozen, and then thus you're on a mission to revive everyone. Yeah, everyone's been turned to stone, including your beloved L. And then you're on a mission to revive everyone and revive the entire Earth eventually, and all the animals and everything living within it. And yeah, you go to these different dungeons, especially, which are different levels of the tower. And this is classic, great action RPG gameplay right here. I prefer it to any of the Mana games. So if anyone says a Secret of Mana or whatever, oh, the Secret of Mana is the best action RPG. No, Terranigma over Secret of Mana any day, okay? For me, at least. I know Secret of Mana, great music, soundtrack, and everything. Terranigma is the darker game, and also for me, I personally think it's superior in terms of everything. Not to say Secret of Mana is, that it's on my list too, but I just personally, sentimentally like Terranigma more. Yeah, the whole thing about going to all the different towers and reviving the world and Earth and everything, it gets really deep. So, anyways, Terra Enigma, number 5. And yes, it is a big shame that this game was never really released in North America. It was released in Europe, but it was not released in North America because at the time, Enix's offices were closed, I believe. So they shut down Enix's offices before they could release this game in North America, unfortunately. We still haven't seen a re-release of this game since. Come on, guys. What's Square Enix doing? Come on. Release Terra Enigma in North America, okay? Please. Yeah, anyways. I obviously played this on emulator back in the day, so I could not play it the real cartridge. Alright, number 4 is Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars, released in 1996. I think this RPG was going to make the list, right? Like, Super Mario RPG is great. Everyone has played it. I mean, loved it, how charming it is. It's a collaboration between Nintendo and Squaresoft. And they made a great RPG out of it. And it's still my favorite Mario RPG. I played all the Mario Luigi series, the Paper Mario series. It just doesn't come close to Super Mario RPG, the original. There's just something special about the original. Yes, I played the remake as well, and the remake is how you would play it nowadays. And I'm just playing the original here, the original Super Nintendo version. But yeah, this game is great. Because it combines like what makes Mario kind of distinct, which is like, oh, Mario, he's coming from a platforming game, and you have a little bit more platforming in this RPG compared to other JRPGs because of that. And then you have classic enemies like the Hammer Brothers here.
It only does 2 damage.
So you still have that represented here as well. Of course, you have Toadstool, you got Bowser and everything, but you also got the 2 new characters, Mallow and Geno, which are exclusive to Super Mario RPG as well. Who are cool characters too, especially Geno. And it's the Mushroom Kingdom, so just being able to visit, like, up until this point, like, the only Mario games most people played are just the platformer ones, right? So just to have this immersive world where you're Mario and you get to experience Mushroom Kingdom like this, and you just feel a lot more immersed because it's an RPG, right? So the gameplay is a little bit deeper than that of a platformer, of course. There's more to do. Anyways, I had a lot of good childhood memories with this game, Super Mario RPG. It's just one of my all-time favorite RPGs. I love how charming it is. The music is great. Graphics and art style are great. It's just very representative of the Mario style. But you also have the classic, Square soft touches as well, like great RPG combat right here. And I like that they incorporate parts of Mario's character, like using the hammer and stuff, and the jump attacks, like weapons that Mario would use. Love everything about this game. The only thing is that I think some people might find it a little bit too easy. It's not as tough as the Final Fantasy games. But for me, like, this is to me this is a peak Squaresoft game, you know. It's amazing. Actually, all 3 of my all 4. Yeah, all 4 of my top 4 games are going to be Squaresoft, so it tells you Squaresoft was really king of JRPGs at the time. Yeah, 5th being Terra Enigma, of course, Enix, but man, yeah, the rest of this list is going to be all Squaresoft, basically. But yeah, I love Super Mario RPG. Play the remake if you haven't yet. Yeah, it retains the great, like, all the great humor and everything is in this game. Great writing, great humor. Story-wise, it's unique. It's an original story. Music is great. Graphics, classic Mario. Dialogue, combat, everything. It's a great game. So that's why it's my top 5. Alright, so number 3 is Treasure of the Rudras, which came out in 1996 for the Super Nintendo. Japan only, so you had to pick up a fan translation for this one, and I highly recommend it because this is probably the greatest Japanese RPG for the Super Nintendo, in my opinion, that has never been officially released in the West. What I like about this one is, so first of all, it's 96, so it's a late era Super Nintendo game, so you have overall great graphics and everything. It's a Squaresoft game. And it's actually the very last Squaresoft game released for the Super Nintendo, believe it or not. So, yeah, what to say about this game? It's pretty unique in many aspects. You can choose from one of 3 main characters. Each time you play as one of the main characters, you can actually stop the story and then continue off as another main character, but keeping the progression of the other main character that you played as before. So it's like each of these stories entwine and affect each other. and then eventually he plays a fourth character after playing enough as the first three. You also have a very unique magic system where it's pretty specific to Japanese, where you input like different hiragana and katakana, I think. You combine them to make custom spells. So that's something that's very unique to this game. You combine different Japanese letters to make custom spells and stuff. Like you just have to, you know, most people wouldn't even know how to do that, because if you're not Japanese, how would you know? But it's just a very unique aspect of this game. I want to point out that you can create custom spells in this game. And the combat is, if you play Final Fantasy, I mean, you know this combat interface already, the side view and everything. But yeah, overall, I have to say the story, the unique aspect of being able to progress as multiple different characters at the same time, the unique combat, like unique magic system, I should say. The combat's like fairly standard for Squaresoft, but it's the magic system is pretty unique. And then yeah, beautiful graphics and music, as you would expect. All that combined together, and I think this is a top 3 RPG for the system, in my opinion. I mean, if not, it's at least, I think, definitely top 5 or 10 for sure. And it's not as well known just because it's not been officially released in the West. But I think if it was, like, people would consider this like one of the best RPGs on the system, because it is. You have great enemy designs, as you would expect from a late era Squaresoft game here. Yeah.
72.
Basically, to show you like how much
kills me one hit.
I really
That's my
like
entire HP in one hit.
show you how
20%
amazing this game is. I think this is pretty close to Final Fantasy VI, and that's saying a lot, because Final Fantasy VI, as everyone knows, is one of the great RPGs ever, and I think Treasure of the Rujas is right up there with actually Final Fantasy VI. So, yep. Anyways, if you guys haven't tried this game, definitely check it out. Yeah, it's just one of the best RPGs on the system. A late era Squaresoft game, and the last one they released for the system, and yeah, they really put everything in it, and it shows.
He's like, what do you do?
Alright, so number 2, Final Fantasy VI. Maybe not a surprise to a lot of people. It's one of the greatest RPGs ever, not just for the Super Nintendo, but of all time. I think, especially for JRPGs. You're talking JRPGs, yeah, Final Fantasy VI has to be up there. It's my personal favorite Final Fantasy. I know a lot of people, you know, who started with Final Fantasy VII would say that, oh, Final Fantasy VII is the greatest Final Fantasy, but I would always disagree, and I would always put Final Fantasy VI ahead. By the way, this is a pixel remaster version, so that's where this footage is from. If it doesn't look right to you, that's especially the dialogue boxes and everything, and yeah, that's because it's a pixel remaster version. I didn't play the original SNES version on my channel yet, but it originally came out for SNES in 1994, and yeah, for the time, especially for 94, one of the best looking RPGs and one of the best looking games for the Super Nintendo at the time. And well, what can I say about Final Fantasy VI that hasn't been said? Because this is Squaresoft's yeah, the final entry for Final Fantasy on the system. So in terms of 16-bit Final Fantasy, this is the magnum opus. This is the, yeah, if you just think of a 2D Final Fantasy game, like, how could you not have Final Fantasy VI, right? I think even though Final Fantasy 4 and 5 are great, like I said, they both made this list, Final Fantasy VI is just, it's a masterpiece. Even just the opening, right? Everyone remembers the opening, where they all like trudging through the snow and everything, and then you find the Esper, and then Terra unlocks her powers. Like, yeah, you have great moments like that. The characters are memorable. Who can ever forget the villain, Kefka, right? One of the most notorious villains in video game history. Who can forget the twist in the middle of the game, where everyone actually just gets defeated by the villain, and then you have to actually pick up the scraps and reunite with your party members and basically regenerate the world again after the world was in ruin. Like, that twist is crazy. So yeah, me, like many others, we have great memories of Final Fantasy VI. It's just one of the all-time great RPGs, and that's why, I mean, it has to make my top 3 at least. I think it's pretty close with this and Treasure of the Rujas after I played it, but I'll still have Final Fantasy VI higher, I think. Yeah, overall, it's a masterpiece. What can I say? And it's actually pretty close with the number 1 pick, and I'm sure if you guys haven't noticed already, there's one game missing that I haven't said yet. That's obviously going to be the number 1 pick. But I think all 3 of these games are really, really close, like FF6 and Treasure of the Rujas, and the number 1 game, which I think you guys can guess what it is. yeah, this is just classic Final Fantasy. Everyone's looking for like, hey, recommend me a 2D Final Fantasy game. This is the definitive 2D Final Fantasy game, FF6. Yeah, music, characters, story, villain, enemies, design, everything. Yeah, it's a masterpiece. Okay, if you guys haven't guessed already, my number one is Chrono Trigger, and you know, how fitting, because this is actually the 30th anniversary of the release of Chrono Trigger, which happened in March 11th, 1995. Yeah, this is just another masterpiece. I mean, some people might put FF6 higher, some people put Chrono Trigger higher. I personally have Chrono Trigger higher. Chrono Trigger is the easier game, I would say. FF6 is a bit tougher, difficulty-wise, but they're both masterpieces. It just depends on what you're looking for. I personally like the story and characters of Chrono Trigger just a little bit more, even if the villain Lavos, okay, maybe he isn't quite as he's not the same as Kefka, because like I think Kefka is definitely the more interesting villain, for sure, because Lavos is just this this big time-eating monster. So not too much of a personality there, but Kefka actually has a very memorable personality. So I have to give it to Kefka if you're talking about villains. Character-wise, I think I resonated with Chrono Trigger's characters more, a bit more. Like Chrono, even though he's a mute protagonist, but who could ever forget the classic lineup, right? Maro, and Luca, and Robo, and Ayla, and Frog / Glenn, and of course Magus. Yeah, I played this game so much back in the day, and really, it was a game that had a big effect on my life, I would say. Definitely my favorite RPG. It's one of my favorite RPGs ever, and I think on my greatest RPGs list, I definitely had it near the top. And one of my favorite games ever, period. It's not even for RPGs, just one of my favorite games ever. So, anyways, what can I say that hasn't been said about Chrono Trigger? This is another masterpiece by Squaresoft. I mean, you have amazing music, amazing OST, of course. You have amazing graphics as well, because this being a later era Super Nintendo game, it's 1 year later than Final Fantasy VI, and I think it's better graphics than Final Fantasy VI. Gameplay-wise, the combat is interesting. You can pick between like actual turn-based and then like kind of like a real-time type combat system if you want, like a semi-real-time combat system. So that's pretty interesting. You can pick between the two. Monster design wise, there's some cool looking monsters in Chrono Trigger. I wouldn't say that they're as crazy as some of the other JRPGs I mentioned. Like Earthbound has some crazy monsters, and like Treasure of the Rudras, the Final Fantasy games, they have really crazy looking monsters, right? So I wouldn't say that Chrono Trigger's monsters are as crazy as some of that. Oh, Metal Max returns. Yeah, there's some crazy monsters in that game. But yeah, I think overall characters are very memorable. Story, I mean, you're trying to save you're going to different periods of time, right? Time traveling, and yeah, trying to save essentially the multiverse, I guess you could say, if you're time traveling, right? Yeah, so first, like, Maul gets in the time portal, and you go back in time to try to find her. You find out you're in another time period, and it just goes from there. The story just goes from there. I mean, you just get to travel through different time periods and stuff, and you eventually just go on a journey to try to save, like, all of time, basically, from this time devourer beast, which is Lavos. So, yeah, overall, one of the great stories in JRPG history. And what can I say? It's just a masterpiece. The only thing is, yeah, FF6 is the more difficult game, I would say. Like, Chrono Trigger isn't particularly difficult. You don't have to grind that much in this game. Also, as you might not have noticed, there's no random encounters in this game either. So it makes things a little bit easier as well. But overall, like, this is just a masterpiece. And yeah, I hope that this gets a remaster or a remake, but only in the style that, like, Suikoden 1 and 2 got a remaster, and I think that's a pretty good remaster, like, in that style, or Star Ocean 2 remake in that style, you know. If you keep, like, the pixelated graphics, but with, like, a 3D background, I think that could work. So, hoping for some good news from Square Enix for that. They've hardly done anything with Chrono Trigger, actually, considering how popular it is. Like, this is one of the most popular RPGs and well-known RPGs of the Super Nintendo. Yeah, we haven't really seen an official sequel. Like, Chrono Cross yes, it's a sequel, but it's not like a direct sequel to this game, if you know what I mean, right? So we haven't seen a direct sequel to this game yet. So anyways, maybe we'll never get it, but hopefully we'll get a remaster remake. We'll see. But yeah, everything about this game is great. The characters, story, graphics, music. Yeah, enemy design and villain design, I think that could be a little bit better compared to some of the other JRPGs. And yes, the difficulty is not like quite as difficult, but yeah, those are like a kind of nitpicks, I think, if I were to nitpick. But anyway, some people have FS6, some people have Chrono Trigger. I would actually put Treasure of the Rudras in this discussion as well, but these are definitely some of the greatest RPGs of the era. Anyways, that's it, guys. Let me know. That's my top 30 Super Nintendo RPGs. Yeah, let me know if you guys have any comments about them. Wow. Super Nintendo, right? Who knew? So many RPGs that probably many people didn't even know about that never came out to the West. But anyways, that's it, guys. Let me know if you have any thoughts about my list. Again, it's my personal list. So if your RPG didn't show up in my list, yeah, sorry, RoboTrek didn't make my list. Or yeah, Soul Blazer or Brain Lord. God forbid anyone had Brain Lord in their list of top SNES RPGs. Yeah, anyways, it's my list, so yeah. Anyways, as always, thanks for watching.